is a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent, featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. Hello and welcome to Godzillavangelists. Today's show, machines. Our enemies or our friends? Let's talk to our panel of experts, shall we? First of all, on my right, we have Joanna Brodecki. How are you doing today?
Great. Happy to be here, as always.
Thank you. And on my left, I have Sam Schlenker. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here, Ryan. I'm a machine expert.
Yes, we certainly are. And thankfully, I'm not going to make you go any further than that.
Wow, I was getting ready. I was dusting off the old pretending skills.
I know better than this point. If anything else, if nothing else, I'm too dusty. But yes, today's show, a doubleheader of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Tokyo SOS. And here with us, our special guest this week, my friend Sophie Desmond.
Woo.
Hello,
Woo.
Happy to be here.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here. It's been a long time.
It's been a real long time.
Yes. And you were actually one of the people who auditioned to be a co-host on the show.
Yeah, when you DM'd me asking if I wanted to come on, and you mentioned that I had pitched myself as a co-host when you were first dreaming up this podcast, I had completely forgotten about it, and I was just like, oh no. And then, so I was like, when even was that?
30 years ago. We started this podcast 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yes, this is our sixth year we're going on.
Wow.
But yes, as with all guests, I have to ask you, what is your giant monster history up to now? What is your relationship with Godzilla?
Okay, with Godzilla? Alright, so as Ryan mentioned, we're old friends. We go back to high school. And so, Ryan, I'm going to give this rundown of my memory, and then at the end of it, you can kind of maybe confirm or deny if I have it right in my head. So basically,
Right.
We went to high school together, and at the end of high school, everyone had high school graduation. It was the tradition to go to the beach for beach week, but instead, a group of us went to Lake Anna in Virginia, and we were there for a week or so. And I remember there was one day where it was really rainy and gross and not a good weather day, so we were all kind of cooped up in the rental house. And so Ryan took it upon himself to put on some movies, and I remember one of them was Little Shop of Horrors, and I remember that because it was the first time I had seen Little Shop of Horrors, and I remember thinking to myself, how is this the first time I'm seeing Little Shop of Horrors? I love this. And the other one, I remember it was a Godzilla movie, and I couldn't remember anything about it now. I just had this image in my head. I was like, well, I think I know what it looked like, and I know it was a Godzilla movie. And so I was telling my boyfriend that I was going to be doing this podcast. He's also a Godzilla head. He's been watching Godzilla movies since he was a kid. And he was like, well, I mean, was it a CG Godzilla, or was it a guy in a suit? And he ended up taking me through almost a guided meditation to try and narrow down what the Godzilla movie could possibly be. And so I was like, okay, well, I remember the circumstances. It's 2011. We're 18. We're at the lake. It's raining outside. Ryan's put the movies on. And I was like, I remember there's blue lighting, and it's a guy in a suit. And there's another guy in the suit, and he's going, it's Godzilla. And he's like, well, that doesn't narrow it down. There's always a guy that points and yells Godzilla. But it got to the point where he was just like, it might be Godzilla 1985. And he was like, and so then I Googled it and Googled images. And it looked like it was right. It looked like what I was remembering. So now I want to ask Ryan if that's the movie. If you remember which Godzilla movie it was that you put on, and if it was Godzilla 1985, because then that would probably be vindicate my boyfriend like beyond belief.
This is amazing because I can actually guarantee if what Ryan has said is true, I could almost say for sure that it wasn't that one.
Really?
Right? Sam is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Why?
good memory. Because I hadn't seen it at that point, remember?
Oh, okay.
That was like the one movie I hadn't seen in a long time.
Yeah,
Oh
I actually
my god.
think a lot more about Godzilla than you think I do.
Sam, are you taking notes every time Ryan's talking just to keep...
Actually, yes. I have a dossier on Ryanisms just waiting to be seen by the world.
Incredible.
He's waiting until I go wrong.
Yeah.
And then he can share it with the press.
Yes.
Anyway, so
That
the
is
movie.
fun, though. Yeah. Which movie
It
was
was
it?
actually the one that we did in our last episode. It was GMK.
No way.
Yes. So it was from 2001, not 1984, but a reasonable guess considering how long it's been.
Okay.
Also, wait,
so
Did you guys plan this? Because that's a spooky connect that you were watching it. That's
Yeah.
the movie that gets brought
no,
up. when
that
we
was
watch.
literally
No.
just me going like down into my mind palace, like trying to
Yes.
remember anything about. I'm ready to be like, what's the word? Acolyte? Because you're evangelist, so
Yes,
you're
that's
bringing
right.
me in,
You're
bringing me into the fold here. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, when we started, Sam and Joanna were pretty much in the same boat as you.
I still am. Do you
Even
want-
less so.
you guys-
I hadn't seen a single one.
Yeah. And do you guys want to hear an embarrassing fact about me for this episode?
Please.
Absolutely.
I accidentally started, because I wasn't paying much attention, I guess. I turned on the original Mechagodzilla movie, and I was like, fascinating that we're going back. I thought we had watched it, and yet watching the first 10 minutes, it wasn't coming back to me yet. I was like, this all seems so familiar, but fascinating that we're going back to this one now. I guess whatever Ryan says. Took me a solid, I probably watched 20 minutes before I went, no, I'm watching the wrong movie. I have already seen this film.
Okay, that's a reasonable thing to have happen, though, because I've taken these movies to task before for their titling. And the fact that there is a Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla and also a Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is craziness.
That's
Yeah,
It's
no,
craziness.
That's insane.
That's a good thing to know,
But-
though, because clearly it's not interchangeable, because you can be
No.
talking about it.
But it did remind me, because then I looked up, I was like, what was it was the film where that bad guy alien turns into that gorilla face, which
Turns
was
into an
pretty
ape, yeah.
cool. So I was happy to be reminded of that.
You know, before we move past the high school Godzilla party story,
Yes.
I just want to picture like two of the cool kids, like the captain of the football team and the like head of the cheerleading team, standing on a beach that's otherwise empty with like a ton of beach chairs and beach balls that they brought, just being like, where is everyone? And they're all watching Godzilla with Ryan.
Yeah, they're not even at the beach. They're at Lake Anna in Virginia watching Godzilla with Ryan and me.
One quick question. When you were watching Little Shop, did people sing along?
I think it was the first time of almost everybody but me.
Wow.
But everybody was loving
But
it.
Ryan, you were humming Suddenly Seymour, right? In the
Well,
background.
actually, so then, do you think Little Shop of Horrors counts as a monster movie? Because,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
It's fun. We should do that. That's fun.
We've talked about how it actually inspired a Godzilla monster.
okay. Well, if you do Little Shop of Horrors, I'm gonna take it upon myself, who just met you guys, to call dibs because I watched it probably like a dozen times since because I love that movie. And then we'll have to sing.
Wait.
You'll be a dentist.
All right, if we do it, we got to bring you back. Though.
Yeah, perfect.
Ryan, is it true? Is it true that it inspired a Godzilla monster? It inspired
Yes.
Steve Martin?
Exactly.
That works on multiple levels.
It
I
does.
just want to point that out.
That is a very layered Godzilla joke.
Sam, that was a solid one. Good work.
To explain to Sophie, when they re-edited the first Godzilla for American audiences, they added a character whose name was Steve Martin.
Oh, that's a deep cut.
Coincidentally, yes.
Hell yeah.
We're having too much fun. I gotta roll this.
We'll be here for 5 hours. I'm going for the record for the longest episode now.
Okay, I don't know a ton about the production of these movies in particular, but I'll share what I've got. So we've talked about how the last 3 movies we watched were all kind of auditions, in a sense, to steer the Godzilla series going forward. But despite Shishuke Kaniko's GMK being the most critically and financially successful, Toho decided to hand the reins to Masaki Tezuka's team, who had done Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And I've seen a few speculations on why, including that Tezuka was a lifer at Toho, where Kaneko was like a freelancer who jumped between studios. But ultimately, the most convincing argument I've heard is that it came down to toys. Kaneko had made a grim movie where every monster died, and Megaguirus was much more toyetic, with its various pieces of cool technology and a focus on a younger audience.
So that's why. I thought you were going to say someone, was dating someone's girlfriend and there was a bad breakup, and that's why.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was hoping for.
That's a reasonable guess. Are you guys as disappointed as I am that we didn't get to see Kaneko go forward with the series?
Yeah. I think based on our straight heavens last time, right? I would say so.
Yeah. Toho also wanted to revive Mechagodzilla, who had only become more and more popular over time as Japanese pop culture developed its fascination with robots and mecha technology. So Tezuka teamed up with the writer of the previous Mechagodzilla movie, and what we saw was the final product. It was successful, particularly the merchandising, and so unlike the previous entries in the series, it actually got a direct sequel the next year, which we also watched, Tokyo SOS. And both movies made their way to the US in 2004, straight to DVD, of course. But what's kind of interesting is that Tokyo SOS was the first movie I actively anticipated as a little 10-year-old Godzilla fan. I was getting on our dial-up internet, like terrible Western Lowndes County internet.
We should cut in the dial-in noise, just like...
Yes, perfect. Reading the news and watching the trailers, and I actually have the very same trailer file that I saved all those years ago, if you guys want to see it.
Wait, what does that mean?
Like, I have the file, the same file that I downloaded from the internet in 2003.
Did it take like 3 hours to download?
Oh, yeah. It took a long time.
From where? LimeWire? Like, what?
There was a site that had, like, Godzilla clips and trailers. It was called Tokyo Monsters.
And that was like how you were that's how you were even able to watch trailers then. You'd have to download it and wait, and then...
Yeah, there was very few streaming videos sites at the time.
Godzilla が国会議事堂に向かっている。行くぜ、Kiryu。首都東京を舞台に三大怪獣初の激突。大怪獣頂上決戦。ゴジラ、モスラ、メカゴジラ、東京 SOS。
Did you lose your mind when you saw Mothra?
I did. I was like, what? Because Mothra was my second favorite even back then. I was like, Mothra's back. The fairies are back. This is going to be the greatest movie of all time.
That's so cool, because I was like fully ready for them to like not like show that Mothra is in the movie and let it be a surprise. But it's funny they put it in the trailer. I was firmly, when I was watching Tokyo SOS, like firmly Team Mothra.
As you should be.
Yeah. Wasn't I just bitching last time around that there weren't enough fairies in a recent one?
You were. You said that it was a shame there were no fairies in GMK, even though Mothra was. And now they're back for you.
They're back. The studio knew what the people wanted.
Yes,
in some ways,
Sam.
in some ways, they didn't know what the people wanted in the rest. Maybe but that's okay.
Yeah. Sam's silence is deafening, by the way.
Wow, you read so much into that. However, you're right. I don't like the fairies. I don't want them. I have
you don't
numerous
want the babes?
reasons. Okay. You saying you don't want the babes is why they bother me. So it's a multi-layered cake of why they bother me. One, them being slightly more scantily clad in this one pushes it even farther in the gross category for me. Tiny women who were kind of sexy
In tiny outfits.
You're getting too fetishy. I don't like it. It's fetishy. It grosses me out. And then the second thing is them speaking in unison. In order to do, they say, everything they say in unison, it means that they speak extra slowly. So all those scenes of them were like seemingly took forever.
I will say those actors didn't rehearse together enough. Like, you can nail that better.
No.
They had a time when one raised the arm and then the other. I'm like, girls, you could practice this in the dressing room, hair and makeup, and nail it by the time you shoot. Like, there's no reason to not be in sync.
See, yeah, I mean, Sam, you make fun of me for saying this, but this is why nobody will top the Peanuts as the little fairies, because they were actually twins. They had that twin.
So they were supposed to be twins?
Yeah.
Because twins seem to be the theme at Tokyo SOS, because the Mothra babies, there's 2 of them that crack out of the egg.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam was excited when he saw that, I bet.
Twins are another
Twin
fetishy
Mothra
element
babies.
to all
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I didn't like
It's another
these.
reason to be grossed out.
Yeah. I didn't like these fairies as much. Like, it seemed, I know I was asking for them last time, but now I'm like, man, maybe they, yeah. I didn't need them. I don't know.
All right, we'll get more into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, just because I watched this immediately after watching them against Mechagodzilla, and just a little extra bit of magic in there instead of just monsters and technology and stuff. I was like, yeah, sure, okay. I was also laughing at it because here's this old man who's these fairies come back after he saved them from being kidnapped and all that stuff. But I mean, and also they should have listened to Mothra and her fairy babes, because they told them we need to put the bones back in the sea, and they didn't. And then,
Yes, which also so many questions, but
yes, we have to get into this.
Should we start with Mecha?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's try to keep. I know they run together a little bit. But let's try to keep Tokyo SOS to its proper conversation.
Yeah.
Before we get going, I did get a message from somebody saying they really missed the synopses.
What?
I tried to read the messages in the order I get them, so we'll save the actual message for next time. But if you also want the synopses back, let me know. I'm definitely thinking about doing it next show. One vote wasn't enough to convince me. But
Yeah, listen, I miss doing the sound effects, okay? And also, it's a helpful refresher for me when I sometimes don't catch all the plot as I'm watching it.
Also, Ryan's voice while he does the synopsis.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, you're convincing me. It's looking more and more likely.
He's blushing, so send in them votes.
yeah, so the lines are open. Call now if you want Ryan to get back on the synopses.
Exactly.
Exactly. Let your voices be heard. Let's have Ruben Stuttered win.
Ryan, we'll pay you $10 more an episode for each synopsis. Will that help sweeten the deal?
Yes, absolutely. I'm in. All right, here we go to the Godzilla against Mechagodzilla discussion. Here we are, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. We'll start with our refresh of the characters, as we traditionally do, just to get things started. So we have the protagonist, Akane. What did y'all think?
So dramatic. I was there for the lady lead, obviously, but the Top Gun vibes of the film were just so odd to me. I think they were Top Gun vibes. I've only seen 10 minutes of Top Gun, transparently. Some of the lines, no friends, no family, just a plant. I was like, who the fuck wrote this script, man? So she didn't fully.
I kind of liked it. I like that they went for it. We've talked about how rare it is to have a complete arc for a human Godzilla character.
Yes.
And we get another one in this movie, and arguably one for the little girl as well.
Yeah, Sarah. I also would die for Sarah and her plant.
Yeah.
I know. I felt so bad as she kept. The plant
She
is a
would just hug
touch-me-not,
it.
but
She
she
was,
was killing
hugging
it by touching it.
And at one point, when she learns that her dad is going to be working on the Mechagodzilla project, she's like, "Why are they bringing back Godzilla? Why can't they bring back Mom?" And she's talking to her plant. I was like, "Baby, no."
Honestly, impressive that she kept that plant alive that long when she was carrying it around. I was like, what? A stuffed animal I could get, but
It's so funny. I liked the plant. That was one of the more memorable. Like we've been talking about, we wish there was more magic in these movies. Like the plant was the spice of this movie. We can't have it both ways. We gotta like the plant.
Well, it was like kind of like, because on the subtitles it was translated to sleeping grass, so it moves when it's touched, so it's very much like it's kind of like a pet. Instead of having like, I don't know, like a Venus flytrap, she has the sleeping grass as her companion, and who she'll talk to about like her feelings when her dad is doing something.
It a little took me out of it whenever I would remember that the plant was being transported everywhere. It was just on me.
Interesting. I like that touch.
I liked the moment with it at the end, but it really the drama around all her statements of just how lonely she was, I think threw me, just because it's not my like personal, I'm much more for the kooky dad of Sarah is like much more the vibe I'm used to,
Which, can we just acknowledge how like when he first meets Akane in like the mess hall or whatever, and it's like, oh, do you mind if I sit here? Hey, babe, would you like to have kids? Oh, maybe I'm too trash. Like literally the lines are like, hi, can I sit here? Would you like to have kids? Oh, maybe I'm just too rash. And I was just like, girl, get out of there.
Also, his daughter being like too much, trying too hard. His like,
yeah, she side eyes him like, dad, what a fucking dork.
I loved how they introduced him. Nerding out about this thing, and then he looks around and goes, no one's listening.
I wrote that down. I wrote that down in my notes. No one's listening. I was like, forever science mood.
I was like, I'm stealing that and putting it in a play. I'm taking it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Also, like, just to, I don't know, backtrack, can we talk about like the opening scene of this movie? Because I was completely sold by the time the title card hits, because like I even have in my notes, like, I was like 2-minute mark, 2.5 minutes, and it like starts off with two of my favorite things. One of which is like an old general, some like grizzled old guy very seriously saying, like looking off to the distance and saying, a storm's brewing, and it's like, oh, the storm is coming. And then it like cuts to the storm is hitting the island, and it cuts to a news reporter out in the rain poncho trying to report from the middle of the storm, and the wind's whipping him around and stuff. I live for that shit. And then, so like already like 4 minutes and 5 minutes and starting and strong, and then Godzilla just rises up from the seawall behind the reporter as he's doing his best in the middle of the storm. And I was just like yelling at my TV, like, this is the best! It already has everything I could possibly want from a movie, and we haven't even hit the title card yet. I was completely sold.
Me too. I do love that opening. Even if the reporter should have been washed away by a gigantic wave as the water fell off of Godzilla.
He's facing the camera crew, so he doesn't know. It's like he's right behind me, isn't he? Because like the crew that's recording him is like, oh my god, like looking off in horror, and he's just like, what? And he turns, and he's just like, it's Godzilla.
It's a great opening, and both of these movies have really great monster photography. There's a lot of cool like shots or battle moments where they just look gorgeous or intimidating or super cool. So that's one thing I'll give them both a lot of credit for. And it peaks early in this movie though with the shot of the lightning striking Godzilla's spines. I was like, that is an all-time great Godzilla
I also really
shot.
like
he looks so good in that.
I like the sound that it makes. Just like a muffled like booming whenever the lightning's about to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would argue that it may peak there, but it reaches about the same peak later when Mechagodzilla gets like a Bad Boys shot walking through flames.
Yes.
Like midway through the movie. That was also great.
Yeah, I'll give that to Tezuka. He knows how to shoot the monsters. But to jump back to Dr. Tokumitsu, I did like him despite his terrible flirting.
Despite being a huge fucking dork.
Yeah. He's just a nerd.
Well, he's just like, he's a nerd. He's a single dad. He's doing his best. He's just trying to, like, he just wants to chill in his lab with his trilobites and their robots and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I get it.
I loved his jokes about baseball and scurvy. How he was like, I don't have to eat my vegetables because I'm immune to scurvy.
Okay, speaking of baseball, and this is completely off tangent, and I need to like interrupt you, but when I watched this movie on Crackle TV, it was free on Crackle, and the note on the Crackle TV is, The greatest monster film to ever have a Hideki Matsui cameo. I don't know who that is. Is that the baseball player? When they cut to like the evacuation and there's like a little league game going on, and this guy hits a home run, and then Godzilla is coming out. So is that the cameo? Because I was just like, when I saw that note when I was about to watch it on Crackle, I was like, okay, I'm gonna purposefully not look up who this is and see if I can spot whatever cameo it might be. And I was like, I bet you it's the baseball player. And then he shows up again. Like they cut to him again later.
Yeah, he sticks out like a sore thumb for sure. The reason he's in it is that his nickname was Godzilla. He was Hideki Godzilla Matsui.
Cute.
Nice.
Which was apparently derogatory at first because he has skin issues. They were making fun of him, saying that he looked like
Never
Godzilla.
mind. I take it back.
But
listen, psoriasis is the real deal.
That took a 180. I didn't expect that.
But he eventually embraced it as like it became honorable by how like big and strong he was. His batting power was well known.
Right.
And this was just before he left Japan to be in the MLB. He played for many years with the Yankees and the Angels, the Oakland A's, and the Rays as well.
Yeah.
Pretty fun. But yeah, you could definitely tell that, like, who is this guy? Like, why are they featuring this
Okay, but that scene too, I feel
like
like epitomized the children in love with Godzilla. The fact that Godzilla was coming and he's like, we got to get out of here. But before he says that, all the kids are like, yeah! They're like all eager to see it. Like, none of them are running scared. They like jump up and down, so excited. He's like, all right, come on, get the hell out of here. I thought that it made me think of you, Ryan. I was like, this is precious. Very precious.
That's great.
Although I'm sure the kid in the second movie made you think of me even more.
Oh, absolutely. What did you guys, I want to hear a little more your thoughts on Akane. Like, because I feel like I just kind of, was a little less into her because of her drama. But were you guys fans?
At one point in my notes, I also was like, so she has Dr. I don't remember the characters. Yeah, okay. So she has him trying to flirt with her, and then she has that one guy on her team who's like, oh, you're responsible for my brother's death in the previous battle, like, just like a team player. And I just like, in my notes, I just said, the enemy is not Godzilla, the enemy is workplace sexism.
It is. It really was for her.
It really is, though.
So I really was like, when she finally like pinned him down on the counter, I was like, yes, finally, kick her ass.
That really does seem to be, I wouldn't go far as to call it a subtext, but like a subplot of this movie is...
At the very beginning, she got demoted to desk work after the opening scene, the opening battle, and the guy, like some crusty old general was like, oh, you like this job? You'll like it here. It'll suit you better. You can relax a little bit. I'm just like, God, fuck off. Like, let her get back in the fray. Like...
Yeah, exactly. She has this very human moment of panic at the beginning, which I thought was cool because it's something you don't actually see very often in Godzilla movies. You usually have these very, like, people who stay collected under any circumstance to an unrealistic degree. So I have her like, oh shit, when she sees Godzilla's right in front of her and just suddenly back up. It was actually pretty cool to see that in this movie. And as the exciting incident is cool because it sets up her whole arc and it has the personalization of being terrorized by a giant monster, which we don't see very often. It's usually very abstract, but like you feel like she's being hunted by Godzilla in that moment. And then it sets up her arc where everybody's like, oh, she freaked out. We can't trust this woman anymore, so they send her off to the desk clerk job and nobody will listen to her until the very end where she's like, no, I know what I have to do. I'm gonna do what I have to do.
And that little moment of, not little, I guess, but Sarah telling her, like, you have to, like, life is everything. I don't know exactly what her phrasing was. That was so precious. And then when she reached out to shake her hand beforehand, that was actually really...
I really like them together as a team because, like Akane recognized her plant, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like they could be a good team.
Yeah.
She gives her some really tough love, though. Like, she's like, it's time to get over your mom's death.
Yeah, she's like, get over it, kid. Toss the plant.
I almost kind of didn't mind that, though, because, again, they were laying into Akane. It's just like, I've been alone forever. No one wanted me. Like, I was always just me. Yeah, talk about, like, really grim, like, character backstory. There's, like, a series of a couple scenes where, like, we learn about Sarah's mother and like how she died, and then Akane was just like, well, no one wanted me, like at least you were wanted, and I've always been on my own. And I was like, shit, man, okay, let's go back to the fighting, please.
It did get very heavy right before the final battle there, for sure. We also have a extremely brief cameo by Kumi Mizuno, who was in 2 of the 60s Godzilla movies, Monster Zero and Abira. She played the first prime minister in the movie.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, that's cool. She's going to be in this. And then, like,
so it's a good
20
Easter
minutes
egg.
in, she's like, I'm retiring. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did like, though, they had the lady minister and the lady pilot. You know, good for them.
Yeah. That's good to know about that Easter egg, too. Because also, so I guess it's sort of notable that this was, like, actively trying to be a sequel to the first Godzilla movie. Is that right? Because there was that moment where there's, like, we're in the first prime minister's office, and she's kind of, like, basically, like, talking us through how to watch this movie, or at least felt like to me, where there's, like, the black and white flashback to, I assume, the first Godzilla movie, and it's like, yeah, first there was Godzilla, and then there was Mothra, and then there was a Bigfoot that looked like it was, like, some guy in a green ghillie suit, and... But I thought that just felt notable, because I was like, oh, okay, so we're actively trying to be a sequel to the first movie, we're setting this whole thing up, if you're new here, don't worry, here's all the information you need to know, and, like, and also, like, the subtitles, like, here's this person, this is their name, this person, this is their name, and their role and stuff like that. There was a scene pretty soon after that, I think, where they were all in, like, the conference room, kind of, like, planning out the Mechagodzilla plan, and it just felt like the movie was giving me the apparatus to, like, I'm not going to miss any important information here, like, it's giving me everything to watch this movie. I appreciated that.
You're right. It is a good jumping in point for someone who hasn't seen one, because it does do, like, a very linear setup. Although I did get a laugh out of the subtitles when the first of them said 1999 AD.
Oh my
God.
God.
I noticed that too.
Thanks for putting
They
it on.
kept using AD. They kept using it. It was so funny.
Yeah, and I was like, I think you can just say 1999. But yeah, no, they were like, no, 80. Just to be super, super clear. Yeah.
And what about the little girl? We got to chat about her. I mean, I know we've kind of roundabout, but I thought her and her dad, I think, were my favorites in the movie. Not surprising to anyone, I don't
Sarah.
think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, she's such a little badass. Like, there was that moment where, like, it was like, it like cuts to, like, a month later after the government, like, talks the doctor into coming on to the project, and I guess they move on to base, and so, like, she's walking down the sidewalk, she's got a little pack of friends now, and one of them has a hamster, and they're talking about, I wrote down, I guess the whole Mechagodzilla project isn't, like, super duper top secret, because even the kids know all about it, and they're like, oh yeah, it's over there, and they're talking about it, and then she's like, okay, well, I live here, I'll see you later, bye, and she, like, says good morning or good afternoon to the guard, and he lets her through, and the kids are, like, too stunned to speak, and they're just like, oh,
also,
okay.
the dub on the kid that was bullying her was wild. He was like, "What are you doing here, pigtails?" It felt like I was, like, watching a cartoon. It was
it's funny. I didn't watch the dub. I was just watching on subtitles.
Oh man, the dub is something, because she's voiced by, like, a 72-year-old woman.
Oh no,
not 72, but definitely an adult with, like, a smoker's voice.
Yes.
Oh no,
this is the time. I feel like the early 2000s were the time where the way to voice a child in all cartoons was to just, like, have a really raspy voice. Like, that, and that's kind of what she sounds like.
Like the Timmy Turner type of voice.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I didn't watch the dub either, so I'll have to take your word for it.
And she also was working in the mess hall. Like, why was she working behind the counter in the mess hall serving coffee? That made no sense.
It would, like, make more sense to me if it was set, like, in a super small town and, like, that was her family's diner. Like, you know what I mean?
But this was the government mess hall.
Yeah.
They got to start them early.
But then also, like, much later in the movie, during all the action, she's just chilling in the control room, like, with her plant, watching it all go down, and I'm just like, interesting. I guess she has, like I said, the super duper clearance to be in the control room during the whole
Apparently.
thing. Yeah.
Well, because they said, we know you turned down our offer, but what if your daughter can hang out in the control room? Then will you join us? And he said yes.
Those were his terms. Now, we come to the key question of this movie. Why the hell did they put the skeleton in the robot? It's never adequately explained, and it seems like a really ludicrous thing to do, even for Godzilla.
I will say this skeleton looked fucking cool. I was like, this skeleton looks awesome. I'm happy that it's here. But it's so like, yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I just thought don't look too closely at it and just be okay with it.
I did think it was cool when they were looking at it, like it was underwater, and it was like they were all in the window, and it was like moving up and down, and I'm just like, so are we looking at it in this giant like tank, or is it like a camera of it in like the bottom of the sea? I don't know, but it looks pretty dope. And I guess I wasn't clear on whether it was like the full skeleton was inside of Mechagodzilla, or if it was just like, I mean, like DNA or like tissue or something, because there was a scene where the doctor or professor was looking at it like a microscope, and it's like, oh, the Godzilla cells are dividing. Like, clearly it was some sort of Godzilla essence was being
Wow, I also, when he said, oh, his DNA is in the robot, I was like, this seems like two separate, like, biology and a different kind of, like, this seems like doesn't make sense. I just learned that, and I also was like, can you pull DNA from bones? Bones preserve DNA comparatively well compared to other things. So, wow, now I know. And good job, they found that. But no, Ryan, why do you think they did it? I don't know. It didn't really make...
I'm as stumped as any of you.
Honestly, I'll be real with you though. I haven't thought about it this hard.
I can't believe that I'm the one saying this, but because it's more fun is the reason.
Right.
Like it is just more fun, and you get like Godzilla PTSD flashbacks, but as the robot. It's just more interesting. I actually kind of, I mean, I agree that they could have had like a line to justify it. I mean, they could make any, because the needs the structurally the blah 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 needs to happen, and then we'd be like, okay, cool. But it is, I think it's a more interesting choice. I was here for it. I think all it was missing was a line. Who cares? Who cares why? It's all made up.
Don't just let the art flow over you. You don't have to be too analytical.
You're probably right. For some reason, it just sticks out to me because it is such a bizarre idea that they don't even give a throwaway line to.
But then, of course, the bones become like critical to the story in the second movie. So, like, without it, that wouldn't even be part of the plot.
Yes, it is an interesting idea because a common thread of these movies is that there's two Godzillas out there because there's always the first one. It was in the first movie, and it was killed, and that's that. And there's just a second one, but this is the first one to have the two Godzillas interact in any sort of way. Mm-hmm. I do like that it's because this is partly my headcanon, but it's partly in the movies. I've always read in that Godzilla is a very lonely creature, and that's part of why he strikes out at the world, and why the first few movies are so interesting is he gradually gets this cadre of monster friends and softens up. But anyway, he feels like a lonely dude, and so to have these two Godzillas coming together, it's a little bit, they leave money on the table for sure, but I do like that concept is in here.
Yeah, I agree. I think a little bit of the Mechagodzilla doesn't want to fight, like that piece of it. It didn't quite work for me, but I kind of like I still didn't quite understand. But maybe that's
Are you
my
talking
fault
about
for
like
not seeing a robot as having a soul? That's on me,
Right. Well, like it becomes self-aware, but then they quote fix it unquote, and then it's not. It doesn't. Its eyes don't turn red again when they use it again. I don't know. I was just kind of like, they're like inching towards something really interesting, but also like fraught with ethical story questions. So they're like, the Godzilla essence from the bones triggered some sort of deep reaction when the current Godzilla roars at it. But we don't have time or enough movie for that, so we're just going to fix it and then we'll use it again.
Right.
And we'll deal with that next time.
And then we'll come back to it in movie number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of Mechagodzilla, the absolute zero cannon is a fun concept.
Was that this thing?
Yeah, there's like the absolute zero cannon that like comes out of his chest and stuff, and that could like I was like, oh, they did that in Pacific Rim. But also they were saying like the maser, is that literally mean like monster laser? Like I couldn't It is. Yes, I love that. I
Yo,
love it.
sick mazer, man. What a great mazer that guy's got on him.
Because it
Yeah.
kept saying that in the subtitles. It's like mazer, it's like it's a monster laser gun. So I'm glad to have that confirmed. Thank you.
Yes, that goes back to the 60s, and it's a beloved piece of giant monster movie history, is the mazer guns.
Very good.
The absolute zero cannon is the first time I learned about the concept of absolute zero as a child. So this movie taught me some science. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, like what is it, Kelvin?
Yeah, 0 Kelvin. You can't go any lower than that. It's the lowest temperature possible.
I don't like thinking about that. That's like thinking about space. It's spooky to think about. Okay, I thought he was cool, but I wish he had even more fun tricks.
Yeah, he has less colorful stuff going on than the older Mechagodzilla.
I wish his head could come off and spin with a blade and strike Godzilla and fly back to his robot body. Like I wish he had tentacle arms that would spit out. I just wish it could have gone a little further, but that's me being selfish.
Was it the first movie or the second movie where he, at one point, his arm like turns into like some crazy drill? It's like, and it like gets pointy. He's like, "Is this?"
I think the first one.
That is the first one. He drills into Godzilla, which is very gory for this movie.
Sorry, I'm sure my like sound effects and gesturing is coming across great in the audio.
I hope the audience is loving it because I know I do.
That's mine. We can all participate in it. Ryan, how was Mechagodzilla made? What was it really behind the scenes? Was it a little figure? Was it,
Well, like every monster, it was a big suit mostly.
No way. Shut the fuck up. Even this one?
Yeah, so at this point it was kind of like a formula. For each monster, they would do a suit, and then they would do a shoulders up animatronic to get the more like detailed expressions on the faces for the close-up shots. And then obviously in the next one, the Mothras are sophisticated puppets, basically.
Right.
But yeah, they did a good job of making it look mechanical.
Yeah, they did.
Certainly, yeah.
Can we just take a moment and appreciate the JXS DF hats? I want one of those like ball cap hats that they use in their training.
Listen, they've had a lot of good hats lately, I feel like. I feel like the movies these movies are clearly like prime ground, like a gold mine for like merch and merch opportunities. But I would like one of their training hats from that.
They do look super cool.
See if they're on eBay or something. Because I'm also like I'm a merch slut. Like I always have like merch from like movies or concerts. Like I have several Subaraki shirts. So I'm just like, listen, get me one of those hats.
Her outfit too, their like power suit when she was climbing up Mechagodzilla, that was a cool outfit. I liked that one.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this looks sporty and protective.
That's what your character in our logo is designed after.
Yes. Yay.
Is that
very good.
Because it was a fave of mine.
Yeah.
But what about the laser gun, right? Where's that from?
The mazer gun.
That I took from the 60s movies, like the space alien women. So it's a combination of your two favorites.
Yay. I miss those space alien women. They were pretty fun.
Yeah, we haven't had some alien invaders in a while, but
sorry,
it might be coming up soon.
Sorry, I was just looking at my notes and I made a note. It was like Kiryu has an electro sword ? So this must have been the one where he like whips out like a sword and it starts to glow and he cuts at Godzilla and it's like electrified. That was cool. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we hit that note.
That is a good move. And yeah, there's definitely stuff in Pacific Rim where I feel like it could have come from this, but this movie is also very derivative of Evangelion, which I know Pacific Rim took from.
Oh, yeah.
Again.
Well, and like you say derivative, but like derivative doesn't always mean bad. Like if you have like a reference point that you're drawing inspiration from, that's this cool. Hell yeah, do that. I mean, I do wish we had a set that was the Shatter Dome because hell yeah, I want all of my movies to take place in a place called the Shatter Dome. But yeah.
We do get some cool shots of like this maintenance bridge like right in front of Mechagodzilla's
with like
head.
Mechagodzilla's big ass head and it's just like drilling and working on it, and they have that kind of catwalk where characters can come and have kind of like conversation and backstory and all that good stuff. Yeah, I like that a lot. Also, the score on this movie slaps. Like, the music really hits its mark.
Okay, see, I think I'm a hater on this film. I feel bad.
Really?
Because I felt like it was almost a little too much in certain parts, but this could maybe be playing into the part that I thought the writing was a little dramatic. And then to layer on top of it, whenever it was about to have a dramatic writing moment, it would be like, da, 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 da. Like when it happened during the No Friends, No Family, Just a Plant moment. And then it happened again when they like threw her the hat. She like looked back and all the people are smiling at her and it was like da 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 da. But for me, just because I thought the soundtrack, the music itself was pretty, but when you put it together with the corny lines, it felt like a little too on the nose for me. But that's also, again, a personal taste thing, always for me.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Me personally, I was like absolutely in the headspace for like, yes, give it to me. I'm going to eat this shit up.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. Like, I wanted to hear the Jurassic Park. I almost wanted to be like, da da da, like when they're all smiling at her.
Joanna, this ain't an A24 drama. This is Godzilla. You go big or you go home.
The shining smiley faces with the lights on them. I was like, wow, I wish my friends always look at me like that.
That's lovely. And yeah, I wanted to call that out at the top. I actually forgot about it, so thank you for reminding me. That's another thing I like about Tezuka's team getting these movies, is that means we get Michiru Oshima back, who was one of the few key female Godzilla creatives, and I love her scores. She has the...
Oh, this is a lady composer?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, I'm just ripping on all the women today. Oh, God, I feel bad. Oh, God.
Stop tearing them down.
Oh, no.
We need heroes and role models for Sarah to grow up in. Yeah. Actually, I missed having Sarah in the Tokyo SOS. Like, we had another kid in another family, but I was like, man, I mean, Sarah could be like a little bit more grown up now. Yeah. She went through that whole thing in the first movie. Like, she might have some interesting depth or perspective. That personally felt like I missed the opportunity.
She said, I'm a star now after the first movie. And they couldn't afford her.
Please, I'm a star.
Too famous for them.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk more about that, but I'll save that for Tokyo SOS.
Yeah.
To wrap up talking about the score, I've said this before, but she does my second favorite Godzilla theme. I love the bum 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 bum. So good.
Ryan, do you have like the soundtracks? Like, are they available somewhere?
I do. I can send you the soundtracks for all the movies.
Ryan has
hell yeah, please. You have them on vinyl?
Wish. They did do a vinyl set, but it's like $500, so I haven't been able to afford it.
One day, Ryan.
I guess this goes under characters, but not entirely, which is that I thought that the scientist and politician stuff in this was unusually good. I thought when we had a room full of scientists, oftentimes I either find those to be dull scenes in other movies, or I don't quite believe that these are scientists who actually are important. And in this one, I was like, yeah, I buy it. It's cool. I enjoyed them. I wasn't bored by those scenes.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There was even like there was the moment where there's like a montage of like newspaper printing, and they had to like cut to like the politician or like the prime minister like discussing. It's like, well, what are we gonna do now? Like, what's our only defense, or like where does the money gonna come from? Is it gonna be our taxes or whatever? So like, it felt very believable that would be the public response or what they were dealing with on the politicians and politics side of the whole thing. Yeah, so I totally agree. That was pretty believable. I thought it worked really well for the world building. And
I'm glad you brought up the newspaper stuff, because that actually, I thought that I can get kind of like in the weeds of like, well, which ones are better crafted, but like that was unusually good, well-crafted stuff, I thought.
Yeah, well, I'm a total sucker for any sort of section. I'm a total sucker for any sort of like paperwork or newsprint stuff. So when they had that montage of like it flying by in the printing machine, I was just like, that's good stuff.
yeah, some good scene transitions in there.
Yeah, totally.
All of the like the crowd scenes, you know, the politician walking down the steps with the kind of like mob of reporters around her. These were like these were all good. These were good scenes that I just want to give a shout out to.
I think too the fact that the politicians and scientists, they seem to like be working cohesively together, but also everyone was kind of aware of the, like, I feel like sometimes the politicians are like, this is what we're doing, and that's, you know, them being aware of the pitfalls and the kind of not best things they're doing.
And I think that's something that maybe wasn't a strength in the second movie. Like, I feel like they attempted a couple moments of that, and it didn't quite, they didn't quite pull it off as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. That's all I have to say.
I get that. Yeah, this movie, well, both of them actually in different ways feel very distinctly Japanese. Like, there's big parts of this that deal with, and I mean, this is going to sound so embarrassing, but even from my limited knowledge of Japanese culture, I understand some of the pressures that they face. Like, women are supposed to do what they're told and deign to the opinions of their male superiors, and you aren't supposed to question your elders. Like in the scene where the Kiryu squad commander like comes up to the prime minister and is like, you need to send us out. Everybody looks at him so shocked that he would dare say this. And when you think the prime minister is going to deny him and he
He's walking
forward,
away,
like his aide stops him and he's like, you've got to stop. Yeah, that stuff is pretty cool. And then in the second movie, which we'll get to this, but they do a theme of giving up a weapon even when you feel unsafe, which is a very Japanese thing. Like, you can't imagine that in an American movie.
No,
when would we ever give up a weapon?
Yeah, Americans would be like, oh, Mothra wants to take over our defenses. If we give up our weapons, they would just shoot her out of the sky. Like,
yeah. As Godzillavangelists, it is our holy duty to assign each movie its proper place in the Godzilla afterlife. So, we can place it in heaven as the best, purgatory in the middle, or hell as the worst. And with that in mind, I feel like you didn't go first last time, Sam. So, you could go ahead and start.
Okay, I will start this. I think that this is a pretty clear heaven. Myself. I think it falls under the category of Godzilla movies that I like to call kind of like standard back to basics Godzilla movies, where it's like, it's pretty simple. You know, I consider 1984 to be that way. That other Mothra versus Godzilla from the 90s, I kind of feel that way about. Like, they're pretty straight ahead, but I think it is pretty clearly, like, under those kind of confines, better than those other ones, I think. And I think it's pretty well made. It's funny, we just watched this one where we're like, you know, oh, it's the best director of the series. And then I watched this, and actually, I think this one is less sloppy than his. Now, the last one, this is GMK, had better ideas behind it. This is like pretty, it's not like, you know, a real thinker here, a real think piece. But I thought it was pretty unusually well made for these. And I was somewhat invested, especially in the first half. My interest waned a little late. I thought the monster fights were unusually good. Again, the human stuff and the military stuff, all especially good for this series. So I think it's a heaven almost just by being pretty good. So I'm a heaven. Oh, and good characters. Like our main girl was pretty good. She made sense and was somewhat memorable. So there you go.
Interesting. I did not expect you to like it this much. That's cool.
I would go to bat for it. One last thing, too. I was shocked. It must have been a time thing. I think that this is one of those, like, I think so much, we always blame the success or failure of a movie and how good it is on, like, its team. And, like, there's so many other factors. Because learning that this was the same director and cinematographer as Mechagodzilla blows my mind, because to me this was so much better made. like so much. And I know people, like, it's like I'm trying to divorce this from the ideas, because it's like, well, yeah, maybe there's some big ideas that this one was lacking. Sure, it's so much better in that department to me. So it just goes to show maybe they had more time. I can't tell you, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It looks a lot better than Mechagodzilla. And I guess I'm talking, so I'll go second. I was also surprised with how much I liked it, because I had this low in my memory, and I think I've only seen this once as a kid, because I did not enjoy it that much at the time. But I was like, oh, this is pretty good, actually. We've got some, like, well-rounded characters as far as Godzilla movies go. The monster photography, like I said, looks great. There are some aspects of it that lose me, but for the most part, it's just a really solid, fun Godzilla adventure. I even don't mind the cliffhanger, or not really a cliffhanger, but like the fact that the mean guy sacrifices himself. I'm like, oh, that's a clever way to set up an ending. It completes Akane's arc that she gives up her chance to kill Godzilla to save him, which allows Godzilla to escape wounded. I was like, okay, that's a fun way to set up a sequel. So yeah, I'll also give it a heaven. And with that, Sophie, would you like to go next?
Heaven, 100%. I had a great time. I will watch it again. It felt like a really good entry point in filling this knowledge gap of mine about Godzilla and Godzilla movies and the franchise. Yeah, I was totally into it. I had a great time. 10 out of 10.
Amazing. And Joanna?
Sorry, guys, not going to be a sweep this time.
Oh.
It's a purgatory for me, and a high purgatory. I think I agree that certain things, the scientists, the politicians, the overall relationships and arcs they were trying to establish were better than a lot of them. I also really liked the ending, that it wasn't this kind of huzzah, that it was kind of like, damn. Like, I liked the positivity around we have to be okay with the fact that we still, like, succeeded in some ways, even though we didn't, quote, complete our goal. And that final shot of her standing out there and him walking into the water, I thought was maybe one of my favorite that I've seen, to the fact I took a screenshot of it because I went, I like that. That's cool.
That's a great last shot, too. Like, the horizon and the ocean, and she's watching him go back into the water. It's like, oh, he'll be back. He might be back.
Very pretty and very cool for her. Mm-hmm. But I think that it just didn't, I guess, too, probably coming off the heels of GMK, the arcs and characters and whatever that they set up just didn't feel distinct enough, like shiny enough for me to say, yeah, this is really something unique and interesting and like stands on its own. Like, I think thinking about the father-daughter relationship in GMK and that like whole arc, Akane just didn't do it for me. Like the dramatic, I don't know. It just, it a lot of times it doesn't. And it felt a little too low hanging of fruit in a way of making it, I guess, less distinct than some stuff we've seen. And I think for me too, Mechagodzilla maybe is just less silly also than some other monsters. Less like, I think I just am like, oh, there's so many robot movies out there. So Mechagodzilla in the monster series feels less unique in that regard. So for me, yeah, a purgatory, high purgatory, but I don't know that I'll ever like really need to go back and watch this one. And the magic with the plant, I like the idea of it, but like go even a little further. They had that one moment. Otherwise, yeah, the plant, I was just like, why the fuck is this plant back? Like, so I'm a hater. But it wasn't hell. It was purgatory.
You know, I get your reasoning. And something you didn't say, but I know is a top line Joanna concern, is this is a relatively humorless Godzilla movie. You got your jokes, you got your winks, but not enough for Joanna, I know.
Not enough, no silly monsters and no kooky characters, or limited kooky characters. Yeah. It just felt too on the nose a lot of times. I was like, I've seen it. I was like, are we trying to get Kyle Chandler up in here to be fucking dramatic too? That's like what I felt we were about to turn to.
All right. And we'll go to a much wackier movie, we'll say. Tokyo SOS.
Definitely wackier.
Yeah.
So we have as our main character Chujo.
Which I kept reading as Cujo on the subtitles, which I know is a me problem, but I was just like, Chujo.
It's the giant rabid dog preparing Mechagodzilla. Much less interesting than Akane, and I'm very confused at why she was jettisoned, because I was like, oh, this is an opportunity to have a returning character in this movie, which is actually very rare in Godzilla.
Yeah, and like she does come back. She does come back for a couple scenes, and she's like ranked up and everything. I was like, wait, I thought she was more important.
Yeah, they're like, we're sending you to America, so you don't have to be in this movie.
She became too hot of a celebrity following her first turn, and the studio couldn't afford her anymore. They had to write her out. I liked her and her relationship with, who was the main pilot? Who was the mechanic?
Chujo is the mechanic. Azusa is the new woman pilot, if that's who you're talking about.
I liked the relationship between him and Akane. Like, I liked that little moment that they had where they were both looking at Mechagodzilla when they left the party. I feel like even though it was short, they did a good setup for the film that both of these people are kind of in this understanding that Mechagodzilla is more than just this like tech robot, that there's something else going on there.
They understand Mechagodzilla for very different reasons.
Yeah. And I thought it was so funny, you're just a mechanic. Like, I just thought that was so funny to keep bringing up. The setup of it. They were like, we know how to make him an underdog. He's a mechanic, and his co-mechanic got promoted to a pilot, and he didn't, and he's bitter about it.
Then you get the line, he cares more about machines than women. Which turns out to be true. He's practically in love with Kiryu by the end of the movie. The way he calls Kiryu when he's falling out of the robot at the end. Anyway,
when the robot says it like has the screen.
I don't know why. I like making fun of Chujo. I don't like him for some reason.
Yeah, I thought he was an enthusiastic underdog, but
I didn't mind him. I just felt like, oh, okay, we're clearly gonna go with a different set of characters here in this sequel, even though I was like attached to Akane's story arc in the first movie and Sarah and her dad in there, because we didn't even have that scientist in there, right? Like, he didn't show up. So
I didn't see him.
Yeah, and it was also, and I remember realizing that was going to be the case after this movie's opening scene, where I was like, oh, okay, we're not quite as cranked up on the opening scene before the title credits as we were on the first movie, which, as I mentioned, I was very enthusiastic about. It was more kind of like technical, like the first image is like digital, like a computer screen about the G-DNA, which I guess is the Godzilla DNA system, and then it's kind of like, there is some tension there, like, ooh, what's going on? Like, there's signals coming in, and like, I hear singing, like, sort of thing. But we're like, not quite as cranked up. And then we cut to Chujo and his nephew at the house, and he's like working on his model plane. And I'm like, all right, it's a little more mellow. But then, of course, we get the old man and his tiny ladies, the fairies. So then I was like, this is interesting. I'm back in the room. Okay.
Yes, I definitely want to talk about several things you touched on there. But Sam, what were you gonna say about Chujo?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It was just hateful stuff.
My mom said, if you can't say anything nice,
no, if you can't say anything nice, come sit by me and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe it'll slip out later. Yeah, I love Hiroshi Koizumi returning as his Mothra character, Dr. Shinichi. I honestly feel like he's underutilized, because I'm like, that's great. He's my favorite returning.
And
like,
they are
oldster
always putting him in
movies.
like a slick blazer when he's got business to get done. I appreciated that they were like, now he's just this like dude in a blazer who's like, listen to me or don't, I don't really care. I'm trying, and this is as much as I'll try. Like at one point, right, when how are they related? Was it his nephew? His
Chujo is his nephew, and the other kid is his grandson.
Okay. After that one moment when I don't know, they were like leaving some government building, and he was like, "Are you good?" He literally said to Chuji, he's like, "I don't care what you do. Like, it's you decide." And it was just funny to me, his sentiment of like, I feel like normally they have characters be a little more like, "This is what must be done."
And he's like, "Yeah, I don't care. Do what you think is right." And then he walks away, and the kid.
Like, I'm trying, but I'm not young anymore. I'm not fighting these battles.
Again, I feel like it's a very Japanese thing where he's like, I'm not going to pressure you and tell you what to do. You
have the facts.
Yes, you decide what to do. But I again, underutilized. He could have done some cooler stuff. But I like that once again he's the advocate for the fairies as he was before. Yeah. He's an old dude and he jumps in action to save his grandson. He's running all over Tokyo and everybody's going, "Oyaji, stop!"
The Tokyo Tower fell on him. We were just like, "No, they're in the rubble."
Yeah.
Yep. But he made it out okay with a broken arm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I liked the opening. It's definitely not as exciting or important, but the stuff with Mothra and the jets looks really cool. It reminds me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, how that opens up with seeing the UFOs on the radar at the airport control tower.
And yeah, we're in Hawaii this time, I guess, because why not? I mean, it's still the Pacific, so it makes sense, but...
Yeah, because Mothra's home is somewhere indistinctly in the South Pacific, so I'm like, okay, it tracks. Also very Close Encounters is the discovery of the giant Camebus turtle.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That was another moment where I was like, the guards or like the Coast Guard guys coming to shoo away the reporter from was like, "No, we have orders. We have to get out of here."
Which is funny because that guy could have just gone up on the cliff and shot the big turtle.
I mean, it's a big beach course there. I think you can still get a decent aerial shot and do your reporting that way.
Yeah.
Ryan, how did you feel about the fairies being back? Because we know Sam was.
I was certainly, when I was a kid, I loved it. As I've said, they're not as good as the OG fairies.
Right.
They're not as in sync. They're not. They also seem more robotic. Like the first fairies, like there was an etherealness to them, but you could tell what they cared about, and like they could get upset. Like remember in Mothra vs. Godzilla when they pettily refused to help the heroes at first, or in the original even when they were calling for help and they're like, "Yeah, people are gonna die, but like you're the ones who are enslaving us."
Right. Whereas
these are more like. They never waver from their, like, very calm and collected demeanor. So I love a good Mothra song. I love the scene where they're singing in the volcano and the, cross cuts with the fight. I remember rewatching that scene over and over again as a kid.
That's so funny, because I think in my notes I wrote, it's like, all right, time for a musical number, I guess.
The song is good.
It is a good song, yeah.
It's like soothing hearing it again. I'm like, oh, I forgot this song.
For sure.
But apart from that, yeah, they're not as fun as I would have liked.
What if they had shown up in little bit like business suits and had been like, here's the plan. They changed to modern day garb. They're just wearing
remember that was the funny thing, like their little fashion arc when the old movies, because in the first movies they wore these like very brown, almost like rags, and then the second movie they were wearing like gentrified like 1960s like little Jackie Kennedy outfits,
and then
in the third one they were on doing like TV appearances.
This one they looked like they were like gonna try to go on spring break or something. I agree.
Like they're on their way to
they needed more clothing.
Yeah, they're on their way to Coachella or something.
Yeah exactly. On the other hand, I think this is the best looking Mothra. It's a lovely movement
Mothra
of the
wings.
Great. The texture of the fur, it all.
The fur too, after her like wing got shot, and she was kind of more gray and on the ground. Yeah, I thought that she reminded me of my old cat at that point. But I thought, yeah, she's. I don't know why I don't remember her as colorful in the earlier ones, but she's pretty in a certain way. Her larvae are not, but
I thought they were cute.
They creep me the fuck out every time.
They're the epitome of ugly cute.
Yeah. Well, and so we're jumping ahead, but like when I was referring to them as like little Mothra grubs. I don't know if that's the term. But when they like show up and they start like spitting at Godzilla, I was like, are they spitting acid? Like, what is this defense? Like, is it some sort of like bleh, like bile that's like burning Godzilla? But then later in the movie, it's like cobwebs and it's like bundling up Godzilla with this like not silly string, but like the Halloween like cob spiderweb stuff. So I was just like, I'm not like 100% on. I'm also not 100% on Mothra's fighting techniques, where it's like her apparently like the glitter is her scales when she's like flapping her wings at Godzilla. So again, I'm not 100% on their techniques of either Mothra or her grubs, but I'm into it because it looks cool.
Yes, they're like big silkworms, so they're spreading their silk.
It's like a material. It's not like a volatile substance.
No. Sam has a lot to say about it, though.
It probably is a fire hazard. It looks like it'll burn up if you...
I'm dying over here. You know, that I obviously have had a problem with these larvae and their quote-unquote silking for a while. And in the early days, it was really horrid. And then it kind of got a little less graphic looking recently. But this time, the silk was a little ropey again, and it's gross again. It wasn't as bad as it used to be, but man, it's just awful. You can see why that in combination with the slightly fetishistic twins, it would maybe all be a kind of a gross package to me, right? Am I crazy here?
I think you've got some baggage of your own here.
I don't think so. I think I'm a truther here. I'm just calling it. I'm calling it out. I think the world has a problem.
I mean, I do agree with your long-standing statement that the larvae look very phallic, and then when they're shooting out this white goo, it can get a little Freudian. But I don't think there's a connection between that and the fairies or anything.
No. I'm not saying it's a connection. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy here. I'm saying that it's just a lot of stuff that makes me uncomfortable. All in one. It's like Mothra herself is chill, but she has just all these problematic associates that they just bother me. I don't
like her friends.
So I'm always no, I don't.
I think the larvae look great in this. I find it very funny when their mom dies and then their eyes turn red. That's just so incredibly stupid and cartoony, but I'm on board for it.
I agree. I thought that was fun.
I thought it was like a reflection, like the red in their eyes. I thought it was like a reflection of the fire that was happening in front of them. Is that not? Was that not it?
Their eyes literally
their eyes
red
just turn red
angry.
after they watch their mother die.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, sure.
Wait, I have a question. Can we talk about, though, was the plot set up not that, hey, get those bones out of Mechagodzilla, or Mothra's going to destroy the city, right? Was that the plot set up?
That is what they said.
I remember, sorry, I watched this again this morning because I was trying to get a handle on everything. But yeah, it was the fairy babes were like, it's Godzilla's bones, you must return them to the sea, otherwise Mothra will declare war on the human race. So I was like, okay, Mothra. So she's kind of throwing down this gauntlet of, if you get rid of Mechagodzilla, you return Godzilla's bones to the sea, I will protect you. But if you don't do that, I'm going to destroy you. Is that... Right.
That seems to be what's going on. But despite the fact that they don't do that, Mothra's just a big softie. She'll help anyone.
Because then, what was the point of that setup? And then everyone's like, oh, maybe we'll do it. Oh, no, he came early. We got to use it one more time. And then we'll do it. But they never do it. And she still helps. So I just was like, why is this what we set up if we're not going to...
Yeah, or they were well, we'll do that, but we need to use it one last time because we want to have our cake and eat it too. We want to finish off Godzilla.
Yeah, it felt like such a shit setup. That's not how you write a movie.
Maybe she had a moment of character development off screen that we just didn't. It's on the.
No, I was like, am I dumb? I need Ryan's synopsis to confirm that the bones didn't in fact get thrown in and I just missed it.
No, not until the very end.
Not until the very end, and Mechagodzilla sinks himself. He returns his bones.
At first, I was like, are they going to hug? And then Mechagodzilla just gets up and walks into the ocean on its own. That's kind of what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty muddled. I guess the idea they were going for is that Shun, the little boy, makes the Mothra symbol out of the desks, and because Mothra is such a good-hearted protector, even though the humans aren't doing what she asks, she's like, all right, you made my big symbol, I'll come help out.
It's very much like, I kind of appreciate the mythology around that, because like, yeah, she's like this moth goddess, and she's supposed to be this protector of the human race, but she wants them to do the right thing, which is to return Godzilla's bones to the sea, and like, it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like that could be just an interesting story thing if they leaned even further into it, maybe.
Yeah.
As like Miss Mothra, like, yeah.
I love Mothra, and again, it fits with her character. I know I was kind of joking before, but that she is such a softie that even though you didn't do what she wanted, she would help. But you're right, it is weird that the fairies come in with this very hard line, like, do this or you're fucked, and then that doesn't bear out. It would have made more sense if they were a little bit softer, like, do this or disaster will happen, like a little vague, and then people could be like, is that a threat? Or is Mothra threatening us? And then you're like, oh no, it's just a prophecy or whatever.
Yeah, I thought God's wrath was going to come down via Mothra and they were going to throw about, like, it's, I don't know. I don't know about this one.
That's fair enough. When I remembered that literally the final hour of this 90-minute movie is the battle, I was like, oh man, Sam and Joanna are in for some fun.
It was a lot of monsters.
Yes, 3 whole monsters.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring up that my problems with the movie started long before the first hour. Okay, so just right out the gate, it's just exposition. It's just everything is exposition in this movie. And it doesn't help that you mentioned the fairies being kind of robotic. Because they're trying to speak in unison, it just means they're doing exposition slower. and I was just so bored by it, like the first half hour, that I was actually rooting for, like, let's just have some fighting. Like, can we just have them fight? Because it was so dull. And I actually, again, I'm kind of giving I'm showing my hand here, but like I got like 40 minutes into the movie and I was like, am I crazy? Like, is this, am I thinking of the previous one too highly? Because this I don't like this. Yeah. And I went back and watched like 20 minutes of the previous one, which is crazy because I actually watched 20 minutes again and I went, no, I'm not crazy. This is considerably better in a lot of ways. Like, and not just, and I not just because it looks better, even though it does, but like those scenes, even the talking scenes were dramatic scenes. And in this, it's just like people standing in hallways being like, Godzilla is blank, 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 blank. Mothra is blank, 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 blank. And that was all of it. And so it was just, I
need a giant synthetic diamond for it to work. Oh, we can't get that. Okay, well, we can get away with not using it too.
Yeah, I love that terrible excuse to not bring Absolute Zero back. It's like, we can't fix the diamond. You gotta put something else in there.
Well, yeah, and I wanted, it's like we have a main character who isn't particularly, he's not connected to much or particularly interesting, and then we have an old man who could be, but instead it's just you're right. Like, what is he doing? He doesn't really get a whole lot to do except watch fairies talk. So I don't know. I was that the monster fights that were actually kind of a breath of fresh air, which is a crazy thing for me to say. But kicking was an improvement.
Yeah. That was more or less my macro feelings as well. I'm like, because I really liked this one as a kid. It was one of my favorites. And I'm realizing that, I just put in my DVD. I was like, I'm going to start on scene 8 or 9 and watch it from there. Because that first half hour is, except for the very opening, a slog. They are like, we're going to have a big flashbang battle at the end. So we got to get all the exposition out of the way right at the start. And it does make it difficult to get through. And then I feel like for having just a battle for the last hour, they do pretty well with it. They do a good job of breaking it up into segments and having like different developments that make you want to watch on. But it is a weird structure that I can definitely see turning a lot of people off.
Yeah, structurally it's a little bit wonky. It feels like, and so since this is a sequel, it's that classic like sophomore slump. Like the second sequel can hardly live up to the first movie. I feel like even Godzilla is not safe from that.
It also just was in such a different universe. Like they were just like, all right, now we're gonna be a little kooky and but we got a lot of people to introduce, but we can't give them more than 20 minutes on screen, and that's all in their contract. So we're just gonna it's a little messy.
Yeah, messy is a good word for it. But to be a little more positive, I do really like a lot of the battle stuff. You got some all-time great Mothra moments. I think Godzilla looks great with that big chest scar. This is one of my favorite Godzillas.
I would like my own Mothra. Like, again, if we're gonna like talk about merchandising opportunities, I would like a Mothra. I can take or leave her grubs, but I would like a Mothra just to have. It's like a pet.
There's definitely a big fluffy Mothra out there, if not several.
Hell yeah. And I really like her battle scenes. I think when Godzilla gets her and she gets hit, I was just like, well, now I have to like watch the rest of this battle, and it's just going to be Godzilla and Mechagodzilla again. With the occasional assist from the grubs in their icky spewing that Sam hates and I was confused by. But
I thought you were going to call it icky sticky, which would have been even grosser.
Nope, I don't like it. Stop it, Ryan.
You don't like it.
That is a bridge too far.
Yeah. But my favorite move in this is Godzilla tripping Kiryu with his tail, then he falls into him with the atomic breath headshot and knocks him back. That's a classic.
I loved
right
that.
there.
That was, I literally was just like, yeah! Like, I laughed out loud when I was watching that part.
Did anyone, when Godzilla was being covered in all the buzz, did anyone go, God, that looks like a nice nap he's falling into? I want one of those.
Very much like, he's like, when he falls over and he's finally like immobilized by it, it looks like he's in a cocoon, and I'm like, that doesn't look too bad.
I got such limited sleep this week. I was at a work conference, which for any nerds out there, I work at Fandom and it's very fun, and I recommend it if you ever see an opening, but I got no sleep, and just watching them do that to him, I was like, wow, I need that for like 12 hours. You
need to be laid. You need to be laid out in a silk.
Maybe put an IV in me to make me feel better, and that just
a light coma in a silk.
Maybe drill a hole in my sternum.
Yeah.
It'll relieve pressure.
Cozy to me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, I discovered something about this movie.
Yep.
That it has a post-credits scene, which I had literally never seen before.
Wait,
really?
And, yes. I always turned it off.
I didn't see it.
Before the end of the credits.
Was it good?
Do you have it? Do you want to drop it in like you do with the trailer?
It's so hard to find clips because Toho's lawyers are crazy. If you guys want to bring up the movie again real quick, I don't know if you...
Okay, let's see if I have it still. Because I literally, like I said, I watched it this morning to try and get my head around it. Because again, I was just like... I feel like I had a better grasp on against Mechagodzilla when I watched it than I did with this one, just because I was like struggling when I just wanted to see more Mothra.
Who doesn't?
This is going to sound crazy, but I saw the post-credits thing. I was waiting for the picture to fade to black during the credits, and it just never did, so I kept watching and waiting. So I did actually catch the post-credit thing. Yeah. And it's not more Mothra. I saw it. Yeah, it's not more Mothra.
No.
I mean, it's not...
So it's not worth me going to look for it right now.
It's not incredibly exciting. It was just bizarre and exciting to me because I'd seen this movie so many times, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Basically, if you want to watch it later, but the idea is it suddenly cuts into this secret lab, and it's like you see a canister of Godzilla DNA collected a few years ago, and you hear this woman saying, like, maybe it's in the synopsis. Yeah. A bioformation experiment involving the extinct subject is about to take place. So it's like, it's...
Oh, I got it. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. It's some kind of setup for a sequel, because you do kind of conclusively end the Mechagodzilla thing. So I guess they wanted to set up, like, what are we going to do next?
Right, but then they didn't. Yeah.
I was about to say, it's like, I assume this didn't go anywhere.
No, it didn't. I wonder if it was hinting at a Biollante revival, if they were going to do Biollante again, because that's my first thing when I think, like, Godzilla DNA experiment.
What if they mixed the Godzilla DNA with that little girl's plant?
Yeah.
To make Biollante.
That could actually work.
Just saying. I did actually wonder that when we're going back to the previous movie, but when she had the plant, I was like, is this a living plant? Is it magical? Is it going to become a monster? The answer is no. but yeah, so it wouldn't be completely unheard of to do it.
Yeah.
Damn, I'll have to rewatch the movie so I could catch it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I literally just put it on. It's like only a few seconds, and it's just what Ryan described. It's just the voiceover, and there's like this canister. It looks like one of those things that like when you drive through at a bank and you put it in and it goes shoot. And it gets pulled in.
It does look like
it's kind of what it looks like, and then like some like mechanical doors close on it, and it's got like a biohazard on it, and then you hear the lines just like a biochemical experiment with an extinct species. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I moved on.
It's an interesting.
And then obviously so had everyone else, because like I said, I assume the sequel did not happen in that way.
It's just very interesting because what they ended up doing in the next movie went in a completely different direction. But yeah, I guess they thought this might be the next one. Are there any final thoughts on Tokyo SOS before we do the judgment?
I think it was, for me, in my ranking, I think it was saved by Mothra. Because otherwise it was very wonky, and I wasn't as taken with the story on this one as I was the first one. I did like the little elements of magic, though. Like, I wanted more of that, because like the little stone, or like the symbol where you can call Mothra if you like draw it out. I thought that was cool. At one point when Chujo was like going to like look for his uncle and his nephew, or his uncle and his nephew? I don't know, when they get like toppled by Tokyo Tower, and he gets like his boss's car, and it's like a Honda, and he's like has that moment of pride. He's like, oh, you trusted me with your car, okay? And he salutes him and runs off. And he finds him, he has the little stone, and it like starts glowing, and then it starts pointing like a compass. And I'm like, okay, that's a thing we're doing now. Great, follow the glowing Mothra symbol. I thought that was cool. So like, it is slightly disappointing that the fairies weren't better, because if we were going to add that kind of supernatural magical layer with this mythology around Mothra, I think there could have been more, in my opinion.
If you are a Mothra fan, which it sounds like you are, you should watch the OG Mothra. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I will 100% be doing that, yeah.
Okay. And I mean,
I am glad you called out the Honda Element, though, because that's a good car. I like the Honda Element quite a bit, and that is my favorite color of Honda Element. These are the things that I was commenting on in the movie. I like that kind of burnt orange, and I like the kind of earthy green. Those are my two favorite colors of them. It's a good car.
And this podcast is now Sam's Honda review.
It was just so obvious. Man, that key toss, I've never seen such a good one. His like life was changed. He was like, and then again, I wish they had started the music. Da, 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 you know?
Yeah, that would have been that was a missed opportunity
when he
for
got
the
those
score.
Honda keys.
You trust me with your Honda?
That was the best part of the movie.
Yeah. I have one more call out, or one more thing to comment on, and it's actually a question: is it the same composer?
It is, yeah. Same for both of these and Mega Gears.
I felt like there could have been more music. Like it didn't swell or hit as hard as the first movie.
I felt the same way. It kind of felt to me like it was cues that weren't exactly written for the scenes, that were just kind of dropped in underneath the scenes. Like there was a lot of kind of like music playing, but not doing anything in unison with the scene. So yeah, I was less into the score in this one too. I
think that might just be you weren't as into it, so it was turning you off. I feel like it's as good.
I think it's a fair call out. Because like Joe was just saying, like the Honda key moment, like that could have been a sweeping musical moment. Yeah.
The biggest cue in the whole movie is the key moment. Like, No. It's not just that. Like it had the feeling. There were a lot of these kind of repetitive. There's like a militaristic theme that's somewhat repetitive, and it kind of had the feeling of like it was going for a long time. Like it was just repeating the same cue, constantly under scenes kind of quietly. And it kind of feels like how the original Scooby-Doo feels, where they had kind of like 3 or 4 themes that they'll kind of put under certain scenes and then walking places. Like I promise you, it's not just, oh, I didn't care for the movie as much. Like it was probably rushed, let's be honest. But like it certainly wasn't quite as specific as
I think I can get on board with that. I just want to defend her Mothra cue because it's good. I like the Mothra cue. Anyway. Sophie, you basically went halfway into your judgment, so I'll go ahead and start with you. You can go ahead and finish.
Okay. And then after I do my judgment, I have a quick question.
Okay.
But, okay, so I'm still going to rate this heaven, but lower than Mechagodzilla. And it's all due to how delighted I was whenever Mothra was on screen doing her thing. So, still heaven, but slightly less than Mechagodzilla. But also, so I have a question. In the first movie with Mechagodzilla, in that flashback moment that I was like, oh, this is a sequel to the original movie, we hit on Godzilla, we hit on Mothra, and then we hit on that, like, Bigfoot guy. So do we think if they had done a sequel to this with that canister of DNA, would that have been the Bigfoot ghillie suit guy?
That's a good question, because that clip was from War of the Gargantuas, which we all liked fairly well, and is kind of like a weird, like, obscure corner of the Toho monster movie canon.
Because I'm just saying that thread is still hanging. It was not picked up.
That's true. And there's actually a clip of that monster in the next movie as well. But no, he's never been revived to this day. That is a good...
That's all I had.
Joanna, where would you rank this one?
Purgatory, solid purgatory. I don't know that it quite earned a hell for me, but I feel like if the last one earned a high purgatory, this one, yeah. Just... really, I got hung up on the fact of why the fuck did we set the movie up this way and then do nothing about it. And there were a lot of characters who they like kind of touched on but didn't really do anything with. The kid wasn't as fun as they sometimes can be, and yeah, it just didn't really do much of anything for me, I guess. So Purgatory.
Fair enough.
Like I didn't hate it for hell, but I just was like, yeah, okay, another Godzilla movie. Didn't stand out, I guess, in too many ways.
On paper, I agree with you, Joanna, but I do have a lot of nostalgia for this one, and I tried to overcome it. Like, I was seeing it with some jaded eyes, and I'm like, yeah, this does not work as well as the other movie for some reason. But there's so many delightful moments that I'm like, oh, that's cool. I still like that. That resonates with me. There's lots of stuff wrong with it. It's sloppy, but it's fun enough. If you want to watch it, go ahead and watch the first 10 minutes and then skip 30 minutes ahead and you'll have a good time.
Yeah, look, there's something for everyone. It's a hell for me, and it's probably in my bottom 5 or 7 of the series that I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought it was really bad, if I'm being honest. I liked, it's like Mothra looked good. I obviously wasn't as into the trappings of Mothra, especially in this one. I thought that the action stuff, I thought all the fight stuff was better in the previous as well. And it's not just, it didn't feel as good. It was sloppy. There wasn't clear cause and effect all the time. I didn't think the editing was good in this one throughout. I thought it's interesting that it was, unusually good for the series in the previous and less good in this. And what that leads to is just action moments not feeling as good as I want them to feel. Like they're not, it doesn't feel like we got a triumphant moment or a clear cause and effect. It just kind of was a wash for me. I did think that what really buoys it, and I really did like, was that burnt orange Honda Element. Which they have a waterproof interior, and you can actually fold the seats up in the back to, there's a big cargo cabin in there that you can put a surfboard. It's all waterproof. You can wash it down with a hose if you want to. And yeah, so all in all, I'd say it's a hell.
I don't know why that tickles me so. But all right, as much as I loved it as a kid, I won't fight with you over giving it hell here. Not an unreasonable pick. Although bottom 5 seems a little harsh to me.
Bottom 5 is chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah, some of it's like the worst, the worst sin for me is, it's because of my personal ranking. So it's like sometimes there are probably worse ones in some ways, but
all right, we've got our fan message for today.
Yay.
Wait, you guys do a mailbag? I missed this part when I listened to old episodes.
We do.
This is so fun.
Sometimes we don't have messages to read. So
that's true, but I'll usually read a social media comment if I don't have a message. This is an email from Glenn W. entitled "Been meaning to write in," so subject doesn't give away a lot of the content. Easily the best podcast revolving around Godzilla. Thank you. I think I asked for that specifically last time. I made a joke about the review saying one of the best. But Glenn has taken us to the best.
Hell yeah.
As a lifelong fan who's recently gotten back into the topic, this has been a great listen. It's great to get fresh new takes on these films as I rewatch them again myself. I recently showed the 54 original to one of my best friends, and they loved it. Thanks for giving me the inspiration to spread the gospel.
Oh, that was perfect.
Yes.
That was a great note. Thank
you, Glenn.
Hell yeah, 1954 one.
Yep.
And if you, like Glenn, want your message to be read on the show, you can send us an email, write us a review. That's our favorite. An Apple Podcast review helps a lot. Send us a comment on YouTube or our social media. And all of that helps support the show.
And let us know if you want that synopsis back at the beginning.
That's right. If you want the synopsis back, let your voice be heard. Sophie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a delightful way to spend my afternoon. This has been great.
A delight is the right way to put it.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have anything to plug? I always ask our guests.
I mean, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Letterboxd. I actually started a Letterboxd because I was trying to wean myself off of Twitter because I would be tweeting about stupid movies and stuff. But yeah, no, I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Miss Sophie Desmond. So you can find me there. I'm usually online when I shouldn't be.
Sophie's got a good letterbox.
Sophie, what are your top 4 on Letterboxd?
My top 4 on Letterboxd. Okay, let's see if I can remember. I remember I set them. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to set it and forget it because if I try and update them or change them ever, then it will be a daily thing for me with my favorite movies. So my top 4 are Roman Holiday, the 2009 Star Trek, All the President's Men, and what was the 4th? I'm totally blanking on my own list. Hang on.
Clearly not as important as the
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. How could I blank on that? That's a formative movie for me. So yeah, so that's my top 4.
Very solid.
Yeah.
But as I said,
is the rabbit a kaiju?
Huh?
No, it's too small.
Is the rabbit a kaiju? Oh no, he's pretty small.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't count.
Yeah. He's just a menace. He's not a monster.
The animated monster that chases them until the animator dies, though. I think that counts as a kaiju.
Or
I forgot about that.
On Flying Circus when the foot comes down and stomps, that it's because I also went
oh yeah,
at the top of the episode when I was telling you about how my boyfriend was trying to guide me through remembering which movie Godzilla movie that Ryan was showing us at the lake. Apparently on his VHS tape of that, the very beginning was a short called Godzilla Meets Bambi.
Oh yeah.
At the top of the tape, and so when he was a kid, he played it, and when the credits rolled after the end of Godzilla and Bambi, he was really upset. But he was upset because he thought that's all that the movie was. He didn't realize that the rest of the movie was about to play. So yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny actually. When I saw a Godzilla movie at the New Bev, I forget what it was. They played that before the movie, so that was my first exposure to Bambi versus Godzilla.
I mean, I haven't seen a Godzilla movie at the Alamo, but you know how Alamo Draft House always has the pre-shows with random YouTube videos and stuff. I guarantee you that's probably part of their pre-roll for any sort of Godzilla movie.
It's gotta be.
Yeah.
I, once again, myself will be plugging my RPG book I wrote with Matt, Green Hollow. This time, it is actually factually going to be out by the time you hear this episode. I know we promised this before, but we've set a release date, April 15th. You can get it on DM's Guild. 3 years in the making, so don't miss it. We're very proud
Oh,
of it.
hell yeah.
Wait, and did you say, it's a D&D book?
Yes, it is.
It's kind of, and when is it coming out?
April 15th.
That's kind of perfect following the movie, topical.
Yes.
Topical around that temple.
I'm so psyched to see that movie. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's apparently supposed to be good. I thought it might be trash, but people are liking it. So yes, please go buy my book. I'm sure I'll post about it on social media. I know I'll be bugging all three of you about it.
Yeah, send me that pre-order link.
Thank you so much for listening, dear listener. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.
Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. This episode was edited by Brogan Malloy. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next time. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.